The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. It was the largest training station in the known galaxy, and warriors from over 300 different species came here to learn how to fight. The station was called Helion 9, and it had trained soldiers for nearly 1,000 years. Instructor Velox walked through the arrival hall with his forearms folded behind his back. He was a Montari, and his species looked like giant insects standing on two legs. His body was covered in hard green shell, and his head had two large compound eyes that could see in almost every direction. His mandibles clicked together as he reviewed the list of new recruits on his datapad. Today was assessment day. The new recruits would show their natural weapons and abilities. Then Velox would sort them into proper training groups. The strong ones would train together. The fast ones would train together. The deadly ones would receive special attention. Velox had done this job for 60 years. He had seen every kind of warrior the galaxy could produce. He had trained soldiers with claws that could cut through metal. He had trained soldiers with poison that could kill in seconds. He had trained soldiers with skin so tough that plasma bolts bounced off them. Nothing surprised him anymore. Then he saw the humans there. Were 19 of them standing in a group near the far wall. They looked soft and small compared to the other recruits. Their skin had no armor. Their hands had no claws. Their mouths had no fangs. They just stood there in their simple uniforms, looking around at the station with curious eyes. Velox felt his mandibles click with annoyance. Humans were new to space travel. Their species had only discovered faster than light engines about 50 years ago. In galactic terms, they were babies. They had no reputation as warriors. They had no famous battles. They had nothing. Other instructors said that accepting humans into the academy was just politics. The Galactic Council wanted to make the new species feel welcome, so they let a small group of humans join the training program. Everyone expected them to fail. Everyone expected them to wash out within the first month. Velox walked toward the human group. His heavy feet made loud sounds on the metal floor. The other alien recruits moved out of his way quickly. They knew what a Montari instructor could do if he was displeased. The humans did not move. They just watched him approach. One of them was a young male with black hair and calm, dark eyes. He stood at the front of the group, and he did not look afraid. This annoyed Velox. Even more fear was the proper response when a Montari approached. Fear showed respect. Fear showed intelligence. The human just looked at him like he was studying something interesting. Velox stopped in front of the group and rose to his full height. He was almost 8 feet tall, and his shadow fell over all 19 humans. I am Instructor Velox, he said. His voice was deep, and his words clicked and buzzed in the way of his species. You are the human cohort? Yes, sir, the young male at the front replied. His voice was steady and clear. Velox looked at his datapad. The human was named David Kim. He was 24 years old. He had served in something called the United States Marine Corps before joining the Galactic program. His file said he was physically fit and mentally stable. Nothing special. Nothing impressive. What is your role in this group? Velox asked. David Kim met his gaze without looking away. I am the senior enlisted, sir. The others looked to me for guidance. Velox made a sound that was something like a laugh among his people. A leader among the weakest species. How fitting, David. Kim did not react to the insult. He just kept looking at Velox with those calm, dark eyes. The other humans stayed quiet, but Velox noticed something strange. They had shifted positions slightly. The females had moved closer together. The males had spread out a little. One female with short black hair had moved to a position where she could see the entire room. Velox checked his datapad. Her name was Amy Park. She was also from the Marine Corps. Her eyes were moving constantly, watching everything strange behavior for recruits who should be nervous. Velox decided to begin the assessment. He raised his voice so all the recruits in the hall could hear. All new warriors will now demonstrate their natural combat abilities. You will show your species' weapons. your defensive capabilities, and your special skills. This is how we determine your training path. The recruits formed the line. The process began. First came a Thornaki warrior. His species looked like tall, thin creatures covered in bone plates. He stepped onto the assessment mat and extended his arms. Long, sharp spurs of bone slid out from his forearms like swords. The bone was harder than steel and could cut through most armor. Velox nodded and made notes. Thornaki went into the blade combat group. Next came a Velkari female. Her species was smaller with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. She opened her mouth and spit a stream of liquid at a target dummy. The liquid hissed and smoked as it ate through the metal. The Velkari produced acid that could melt through almost anything. Velox assigned her to the special weapons group. Agorath stepped up next. His species was massive, nearly 10 feet tall, and covered in what looked like gray stone. His rocky hide could stop plasma bolts, and his fists could crush metal. He demonstrated by punching through a thick steel plate. Heavy assault group. Velox noted one by one the recruits showed their abilities. Claws and fangs, poison and venom, armored shells, and crushing strength, electric shocks, and sonic screams. The galaxy had produced an incredible variety of natural weapons. Then it was time for the humans. David Kim stepped onto the assessment mat. He stood there looking small and soft compared to the warriors who had come before. The other alien recruits watched with amusement. Some of them laughed quietly. Velox approached the mat. His compound eyes studied the human. There was nothing impressive to see. No visible weapons, no obvious abilities, just a small, soft creature with thin skin and blunt fingers. Human. Velox said the word like it was an insult. Demonstrate your natural weapons. David Kim looked at the other human recruits. Something passed between them, some kind of silent communication. Amy Park nodded slightly. The others shifted their weight like they were preparing for something. David turned back to Velox. A small smile appeared on his face. Which one, Sir? Velox felt his mandibles click with confusion. He had asked a simple question. The human should show his claws or his fangs or whatever pitiful natural weapons his species possessed. All of them, Velox said. David Kim nodded slowly. His smile grew a little wider. That might take a while. Sir. Velox made an impatient gesture with two of his arms. Then begin. We do not have all day. Very well, sir, David said. He rolled his shoulders and took a breath. Then he raised his hands and closed them into fists. Velox stared at the closed hands. That was it. That was the natural weapon of humanity. Soft, fleshy lumps at the end of soft, fleshy arms. Pathetic. But David Kim was not finished. He was only beginning. And by the time he was done, Instructor Velox would never look at humans the same way again. None of them would. David Kim stood on the assessment mat with his fists raised. The alien recruits watched him with bored expressions. The Thornaki warrior with the bone blades whispered something to the Velkari female, and they both laughed quietly. Instructor Velox crossed two of his forearms. His compound eyes showed no interest in what the human was doing. Every species could make a fist. Every species could swing their limbs. This was nothing special. David began to speak in a calm, clear voice. These are called fists, he said. We close our hands like this to protect our fingers and to create a hard striking surface. The bones in a human hand are small, but when we close them together, they become strong enough to break other bones. He demonstrated a punch, moving his fist through the air with speed and control. We call this a punch. We can aim it at soft targets like the throat or stomach, or we can aim it at hard targets like the jaw or temple. A strong punch to the right spot can knock an enemy unconscious or kill him. Velox made a note on his datapad. His mandibles clicked with boredom. This was basic information. Any species with arms could punch, but David was not done. He opened his hands and held them flat. This is called a palm strike, he said. We use the bottom part of our hand where the bone is thick. We can hit harder with a palm strike than with a fist because we do not risk breaking our fingers. He showed the motion, striking forward with the heel of his palm. A palm strike to the nose. can drive bone into the brain. A palm strike to the ear can rupture the membrane inside and cause extreme pain. A palm strike under the chin can snap the head back and damage the spine. Tornaki warrior stopped laughing, his bone spurs retracted. Slightly as he listened more carefully, David turned his hand sideways, showing the edge. This is called a knife hand strike. We use the edge of our hand like a blade. The muscles and bones here are strong enough to break wooden boards or crack bones. We target the neck, the collarbone, the ribs, any place where a sharp impact will cause damage. Velox felt his mandibles click again. But this time, it was not boredom. The human was listing killing techniques one after another. His voice stayed calm. Like he was discussing the weather. David raised his elbow. This is one of the hardest points on the human body. We call it an elbow strike. In close combat, when we cannot swing our arms, we use our elbows. An elbow to the face can shatter bone. An elbow to the ribs can crack them. An elbow to the back of the head can kill. He lifted his knee. Next knee strikes. We use these when the enemy is close enough to grab. Our legs are the strongest part of our body. A knee to the stomach can rupture organs. A knee to the face can break the skull. A knee to the thigh can damage muscles so badly the enemy cannot walk. David stepped back and executed a swift kick. His leg moved through the air with surprising speed. We have many different kicks. Side kicks, front kicks, roundhouse kicks, back kicks, hook kicks. Each one serves a different purpose. Each one targets different areas. We trained for years to make these movements automatic. The assessment hall had gone quiet. The alien recruits were no longer laughing. They were watching David Kim with new expressions. Some looked confused, some looked uncomfortable. Instructor Velox found himself leaning forward slightly. His datapad hung forgotten in one of his hands. David opened his mouth and pointed inside teeth. Human teeth are not as sharp as many species, but we are omnivores. We evolved to eat both meat and plants. Our bite force is around 160 pounds of pressure per square. Inchi closed his mouth and smiled. It was not a friendly smile more. Importantly, our jaw muscles have great endurance. When a human bites down, we can hold that bite for a very long time. We do not let go easily. If I bite an enemy and they try to pull away, they will lose whatever part of them is in my mouth. The Volcari female made a small sound of disgust, or perhaps fear. Her species relied on their acid spit for combat. The idea of using teeth like weapons seemed primitive to her, but she could not deny that it was effective. David held up his hands again, showing his fingers, fingernails. Humans keep them short for daily life, but they can be grown longer or sharpened. They are useful for scratching, gouging, and tearing. We can target the eyes, the face, the throat, any soft tissue. He made a V shape with 2 fingers. Eye gouges. We push our fingers into the eyes of our enemies. This causes blindness and extreme pain. It is a technique we teach to everyone, even children who need to defend themselves. Velox felt his thorax vibrate involuntarily. It was a stress response that his species could not control. He had trained warriors for 60 years. He had seen species with natural weapons that could destroy buildings. But something about the calm, methodical way this human listed killing techniques disturbed him. David tapped his forehead. The human skull is very dense and hard. We use it as a weapon too. We call it a headbutt. We slam our forehead into the face of our enemy, breaking their nose, stunning them, creating an opening for more attacks. He touched his teeth. Again, we can also bite with a headbutt motion. Snap our head forward and catch flesh with our teeth. Ears, noses, fingers, anything within reach. The Garth warrior shifted his massive stone body. His species feared almost nothing their hide could stop. Most weapons. But he was looking at David Kim with an expression that might have been uncertainty. David smiled at the watching aliens. His dark eyes moved from face to face. These are just the body parts you can see, he said. Just the obvious weapons every human carries from birth. He paused and let the silence stretch. Would you like to know about the other weapons? Velox realized that his mandibles had stopped clicking. His compound eyes were fixed on the small, soft human standing on the assessment. Matt, the other human recruits, had not moved. Amy Park still watched the room with her scanning eyes. The others stood in their spread formation, calm and patient. They did not look like helpless creatures. Anymore, they looked like predators, waiting for a reason to attack. Yes, Belloc said. His voice came out quieter than he intended. Show me the other weapons. David Kim nodded. His smile grew wider. Then let me show you what humans can do with everyday objects. David Kim bent down and began to unlace his boot. The alien recruits watched with confusion. They did not understand what footwear had to do with combat assessment. Velox tilted his head. His compound eyes tracked every movement of the human's fingers. David pulled the lace free from his boot and held it up for everyone to see. It was a simple cord, about 3 feet long, made of woven material. Nothing special, nothing dangerous, or so the aliens thought. This is a bootlace, David said. Every human soldier has at least 2 of these. We use them to keep our boots tight and secure on our feet. He stretched the lace between his hands, but a bootlace is also a garrote. We can wrap it around an enemy's throat and pull both ends crossed behind the neck. We use our body weight and leverage. The enemy cannot breathe. The blood stops flowing to their brain. They lose consciousness in seconds. Death follows if we do not release. The Thornaki warrior touched his own throat. His bone spurs would not protect him. From a thin cord pulled tight, David continued speaking in his calm teaching voice. A bootlace can also be a restraint. We can tie an enemy's hands behind their back. We can tie their feet together. We can connect hands to feet so they cannot move at all. He demonstrated the motions wrapping the lace around his own wristed. Can be a tourniquet. If a soldier is wounded and bleeding, we wrap the lace tight above the wound. We twist it tighter with a stick or rod. The bleeding stops. The soldier lives long enough to receive medical care. David set the lace aside and picked up his boot. He held it by the toe, letting the heavy heel hang down. A boot is a blunt weapon. The heel especially. Human boots often have hard material in the heel, metal or dense plastic. When we swing the boot, the heel becomes like a hammer. He demonstrated swinging the boot through the air. We can break bones with this. We can crush skulls. We can attack from a distance greater than our arms can reach. The laces can be wrapped around our hand for better grip. The Valkyrie female looked down at her own feet. Her species did not wear footwear. Their feet had natural pads that gripped surfaces. She had never considered that clothing could be weapons. David set the boot down and unbuckled his belt. He pulled it free from his waist and held it up. A belt, he said. Every human soldier wears one. He let the belt hang from his hand, then snapped it through the air like a whip. The leather cracked loudly. This is a whip now. We can strike from several feet away. The end moves faster than the eye can follow. It can cut skin. It can blind if it hits the eyes. He wrapped part of the belt around his fist, leaving the buckle end free, or we weight the end with the buckle. Now it is a flail. The buckle adds mass and hardness. When it hits much harder than a fist alone. David swung the weighted belt in a circle. The buckle whistled through the air. We can also use it for strangulation, like the bootlace but stronger. The belt is wider so it crushes the windpipe faster. We can use it to restrain enemies. We can use it to climb. We can use it to make splints for broken bones. Amy Park stepped forward from the human group. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a standard issue pen, the kind used to write notes and sign documents. Any rigid object becomes a stabbing weapon, she said. Her voice was as calm as David. She held the pen in her fist with the point extending from the bottom of her hand. We call this an ice pick grip. We stab downward with force. The pen point can go into soft tissue, eyes, throat, armpits, groin, any place where the skin is thin. She shifted her grip so the pen extended from the top of her fist, or we hold it this way for forward thrusts. We can target the neck, the chest, between ribs, the stomach. She looked at the alien recruits with steady eyes. Pens are everywhere. Every office, every ship, every station has them. No one thinks of them as weapons, but in human hands, they are. Another human stepped forward. His name was Michael Lee, and he was shorter than David, but built with thick muscles. He held up his water canteen. "This is heavy when full," he said. "Water weighs about 2 pounds per quart. This canteen holds a quart." He gripped the canteen by its strap and swung it in a short arc blunt force trauma. "We can hit with this hard enough to break bones, to cause concussions, to knock enemies unconscious." He unscrewed the cap. "We can fill it with sand or small rocks. Now, it weighs more, hits harder." He mimed throwing the contents, or we throw the water in someone's face. Not to hurt them, but to blind them, to distract them. For just a moment, their eyes close, their hands come up to protect their face, and in that moment we attack with something else. Michael set the canteen down and gestured at the room around them. Everything in this room is a weapon. Chairs can be swung or thrown. Tables can be flipped for cover or used as battering rams. Light fixtures can be pulled down and used as clubs. The glass in those windows can be broken into cutting edges. David Kim bent down and scooped up a handful of dirt from a training pit near the mat. He let the dirt trickle through his fingers. Even this thrown in the eyes, it blinds. Packed tight, it becomes a projectile. Mixed with water, it becomes mud that can be smeared on sensors, on visors, on camera lenses. He brushed his hands clean and looked at Instructor Veloxir. The human said, "Every environment we enter becomes an armory. We look at rooms and we see weapons. We look at objects and we see tools for killing. We cannot turn this off. It is how our minds work." Velox realized his thorax was vibrating again. The stress response was stronger. Now his species had evolved on a peaceful world. They had developed natural weapons, yes, but they thought of combat as a straightforward thing. Claw against claw, mandible against mandible. These humans did not think that way. They looked at the universe and saw nothing but opportunities for violence. Amy Park spoke again. "We call it situational awareness. We are always watching, always planning. If you attack us right now, every human in this room knows exactly what they would grab, what they would throw, where they would strike." The other humans nodded. Their eyes moved around the room, and Velox understood that they were not just watching. They were measuring distances, calculating angles, identifying targets. He had brought them into the academy thinking they were harmless. He had let them into a room full of potential weapons, and they had already counted every single one. "Show me more," Velox said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "What else? What else can humans do?" David Kim met his gaze. Those calm, dark eyes held something that Velox had not seen before, something that made his instincts scream warnings. "We have not discussed the most dangerous weapons yet, sir," David said. "The ones you cannot see, the ones you cannot defend against." Velox felt cold. For the first time in decades, what weapons are those? David smiled. "Our minds." The assessment hall was completely silent now. The alien recruits had stopped whispering and shifting. They stood frozen, watching the humans with expressions that ranged from disbelief to fear. Instructor Velox lowered himself slightly, bringing his compound eyes closer to David Kim's level. He wanted to see this human's face clearly when he explained what he meant by weapons. "You cannot see." David clasped his hands behind his back and began to pace slowly. His movements were relaxed but controlled. "Like a predator that did not need to hurry. Humans are pursuit predators," he said. "Our ancestors lived on a planet called Earth. It was a dangerous world filled with animals that were faster than us, stronger than us, had sharper teeth and claws than." Yuj paused and looked at the Thornaki warrior with his bone blades, then at the Gorath with his stone skin, then at the Valkyrie with her acid spit. "By your standards, we should have died out millions of years ago. We had no natural advantages, no armor, no vem, no special abilities, but we survived." David turned and faced the crowd again. "Do you know how we survived? We did not outrun our prey. We did not overpower it. We followed it. We walked after it hour after hour, day after day. Our bodies can regulate Temperature through sweating. Most animals cannot do this. They overheat and have to stop. We do not stop. We keep walking, we keep following. Eventually, the prey collapses from exhaustion. Then we kill it. The Gorath shifted his massive body, uncomfortableness. Persistence is still in our blood. David said, we do not give up. We do not quit. When a human decides to do something, they keep trying until they succeed or die. There is no middle ground, Amy. Park stepped forward to stand beside David. Our bodies produce chemicals under stress, she said. One is called adrenaline. When danger comes, our hearts beat faster, our muscles grow stronger, our reactions speed up. Pain becomes distant, almost ignorable. She held up her hand and made a fist. Humans have been documented fighting with broken bones, with missing limbs, with wounds that should have killed them instantly. The adrenaline keeps us moving, keeps us fighting long after our bodies should have failed. Michael Lee joined them, forming a line of 3 humans facing the alien crowd. There are records, he said, of humans lifting objects that weigh thousands of pounds. Objects they could never lift normally. But when someone they loved was trapped underneath, they found the strength. Adrenaline did that. It unlocked abilities that are normally hidden. Velox made a sound of disbelief. His mandibles clicked rapidly. Surely, this was exaggeration. All species had some response to danger, but what these humans described sounded impossible. David seemed to read his thoughts. I know what you are thinking, sir. Humans lie. Humans exaggerate. But this is documented fact. Our medical science has studied it. Our military has trained to use it. We know exactly how far our bodies can be pushed because we have pushed them there many times. He took a step closer to Velox. But adrenaline is just chemistry. The real weapon is something else. Something that other species have called insane and irrational and terrifying. David paused, his dark eyes locked onto Velox's compound eyes. We call it love. The word hung in the air. The alien recruits looked confused. Love was not a concept that most species associated with combat. Amy Park explained further. Humans form bonds, deep emotional connections to other humans, to other species, even to objects and ideas. We call it pack bonding. When we bond with something, it becomes part of us. Hurting it is the same as hurting. Usher voice grew harder. When you threaten something a human loves, the normal rules stop applying. Fear goes away. Self-preservation goes away. There's only one thought: protect what we love. Kill anything that threatens it. Michael Lee nodded. Parents protecting children, soldiers protecting their unit, friends protecting each other. When that bond is activated, humans become something different. We have a word for it. We call it berserker rage. He looked at the Thornaki warrior. Your bone blades are impressive, but if you threaten my family, I would tear them out of your arms with my bare hands and use them to kill you. I would not feel pain until after you were dead. I would not feel fear at any point. I would only feel the need to end you. Thornaki took a step backward. His bone spurs extended involuntarily. A defensive response. David raised a hand, calming the tension. We are not threatening anyone here. We are explaining, because you need to understand what humans bring to a unit. He turned to face Instructor Velox directly. But there is one more weapon, sir. The most dangerous one. Of Avalox found that his voice had abandoned him. He could only wait our capacity for planning. David said. He began pacing again, his voice taking on a lecturing tone. Humans think about the future constantly. We imagine scenarios that have not happened. We prepare for threats that may never come. We build weapons specifically designed to counter other weapons. He gestured at the room. When I walked into this hall, I immediately began threat assessment. I identified all exits. I noted the positions of every recruit. I calculated distances and obstacles. I identified objects that could be used as weapons or shields. His eyes swept across the alien recruits. I noticed that the Thornaki keeps his weight on his right leg. Probably an old injury. If I needed to fight him, I would target that leg first. His bone spurs extend from his forearms, which means his shoulders are the weak points. I would attack there. The Thornaki looked down at his right leg. His mandibles opened with shock. The human was correct. He had injured that leg 3 years ago. How had the human noticed? David continued. The Valkyrie needs to open her mouth to spit acid. If I covered her mouth or struck her throat before she could spit, she would be helpless. The acid would burn her own mouth if she tried. To release it, the Valkyrie female closed her mouth tightly. Her black eyes were wide with fear. The Goroth is large and strong but slow. His joints are the weak points. Large bodies need large joints to move the knees, the elbows, the neck. Smaller targets, but still vulnerable to precision strikes. The Goroth rumbled something in his own language. It might have been a curse. David stopped pacing and faced Veloxir. When you asked me to demonstrate our natural weapons, I had already identified 17 ways to kill you using objects in this room. I had calculated your likely movement patterns based on your joint structure and body type. I had planned escape routes for my entire cohort, in case this assessment turned hostile. Velox felt his legs weakened slightly. He had been in the presence of this human for less than an hour, and in that time, the human had already prepared to kill him. This is what humans do, David said. We cannot turn it off. We are always watching, always calculating, always ready. Our brains never stop looking for threats, and our hands never stop looking for weapons. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We call it survival instinct. Every human has it. Some have it stronger than others. But all of us, all 19 humans in this room, have been doing exactly what I described since the moment we arrived. Danny Park spoke quietly. We know where the weapons lockers are. We know the patrol schedules of the station security. We know which species here are threats and which are potential allies. We know the weak points of this station itself. Michael Lee added, we have backup plans for our backup plans. We have discussed what we would do if the station was attacked, what we would do if we were betrayed, what we would do if we had to fight our way out with nothing but our hands and whatever we could grab. Velox realized something horrible. These humans had been assessing him from the moment they arrived. They watched him the way predators watch prey. They had measured him, calculated him, prepared to kill him if necessary. And he had dismissed them as harmless. He had underestimated them completely. Now, he stood in a room with 19 creatures who had already planned his death. What stopped them from acting? David seemed to understand his fear. We are not your enemy, sir. He said, we came here to learn to fight alongside other species, not against them. But you asked what makes humans dangerous. He spread his hands. This is what makes us dangerous. We are never unarmed. We are never unprepared. We are never not thinking about how to kill everything around you. Lowered his hands. It is exhausting, honestly. But it is also why humanity survived a planet that tried to kill us for millions of years. And it is why we will be very, very good allies in whatever war is coming. Velox finally found his voice. How do you know a war is coming, David? Kim smiled. Because there is always a war coming, sir. Humans have learned that lesson many times. We prepare for war, constantly hoping we are wrong. But we are rarely wrong. The assessment hall remained silent. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to think. They only knew that they would never look at humans the same way again. Instructor Velox stood motionless for a long time. His compound eyes studied David Kim with new understanding. He had trained warriors from 300 species. He had seen claws that could tear through starship hulls. He had seen venom that could dissolve flesh in seconds. He had seen strength that could crush mountains. He had never felt afraid of a recruit before. He felt something close to it. Now the 19 humans stood in their loose formation. They looked relaxed, but Velox now understood what that relaxation meant. They were ready. They were always ready. Their bodies might look soft, and their hands might look empty, but their minds were loaded with plans and contingencies. Every moment they stood there, they were calculating. You were performing threat assessment, Velox said slowly. On me, on this room since you arrived. David Kim nodded. There was no apology in his expression since before we boarded the transport to the station, sir. We all were Velox looked at the other human recruits. Amy Park with her scanning eyes, Michael Lee with his thick muscles. The 16 others who had stayed quiet but watchful throughout the demonstration. They all had the same look, the same calm readiness, the same predator patience. He had trained Thornaki. Berserkers who lived for battle. He had trained. Valkyrie assassins who killed without emotion. He had trained Gorath heavy infantry who felt no fear, none of them had disturbed him like these humans did. Why reveal this, Velox asked, surely tactical. Advantage lies in concealing capabilities. A warrior does not show his weapons to potential enemies, Amy Park answered. Because we are not going to be fighting against these recruits. We are going to be fighting alongside them. They need to understand what humans bring to a unit. She paused and looked at the alien recruits. Some of them were still standing frozen with shock. Others had moved into defensive postures without realizing it. If we had hidden our abilities, they would have continued to underestimate us. They would have made plans that did not account for what we can do. They would have put us in positions where we could not help them, in combat that could get people killed, Michael. Lee added, humans have learned that trust is built through honesty. We do not hide from our allies. We show them exactly what we are. Then they can decide whether they want us at their side. David. Kim spoke again, and there is another reason, sir. He took a step closer to Velox. His voice dropped lower. Humans tend to be honest when we can afford to be. Deception requires energy. Energy we would rather spend on other things. We lied enough to survive on Earth. We lied to predators to prey to each other. Now that we are among the stars, we prefer truth when truth serves you. Velox considered this. His species valued deception. The Montari had evolved as ambush hunters. They hid and waited and struck without warning. Honesty was weakness in their culture. But these humans seemed to think differently. They revealed their weapons openly. They shared their secrets freely. It was either foolishness or supreme confidence. Looking at David, Kim Velox suspected it was the second. I've trained warriors for 60 cycles, Velox said finally. His mandibles clicked. Thoughtfully, I have never encountered a species whose threat profile changes based on context, environment, and emotional state to this degree. David nodded. We call it adaptability, sir. It is how we survived on a planet that was actively trying to kill you. Smiled slightly, and there was something almost sad in that smile. Earth did not nurture us. It did not protect us. It threw everything it had at us. Predators that could tear us apart. Diseases that could kill millions. Climate changes that wiped out entire populations. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, fires. Every kind of disaster you can imagine. He spread his hand. We did not evolve to dominate our world. We evolved to survive it, and survival meant becoming whatever we needed to be moment to moment, generation to generation. Amy Park spoke. When the ice ages came, we learned to make fire and shelter. When the predators threatened us, we learned to make weapons. When the diseases struck, we learned medicine. When the resources ran out, we learned to farm and trade and cooperate. Her voice grew stronger. Every challenge threw at us made us more adaptable. Every near extinction event filtered out the weak and the rigid. Only the flexible survived. Only the creative. Only the persistent. Michael Lee finished the thought. By the time we left Earth, we had already survived everything a planet could throw at a species. We had fought our environment, our predators, and each other. We had been tested in every way possible. He looked at the alien recruit. Space is dangerous, but it is not more dangerous than Earth was. It is just dangerous in different ways. And we will adapt to those ways just like we adapted to everything else. Velox straightened to his full height. He folded his forearms behind his back, in the formal posture of a Montari instructor making an official decision. The standard assessment protocol classifies species by fixed capability tiers, he announced. His voice carried across the silent hall. Tier 1 for species with natural armor. Tier 2 for species with natural weapons. Tier 3 for species with special abilities. Tier 4 for species without natural combat advantages. He paused and looked at the 19 humans. Humans cannot be classified under this system. David Kim raised an eyebrow. What will you report? Servalox let the question hang for a moment. Then he answered, I will report that humanity's natural weapon is humanity itself. Your bodies are merely delivery systems for something far more dangerous, an intelligence that never stops calculating, never stops adapting, never stops surviving. Turn to address the entire training cohort, all 300 recruits from dozens of species. You will all be grateful, he announced, that these humans are your allies, because if they were your enemies, this academy could not teach you enough to save your lives. The words echoed in the silent Havalox. Turned back to David Kim. The human met his gaze steadily. There was no pride in his expression, no arrogance, just calm. Acknowledgement of a truth spoken aloud. The instructor inclined his head slightly. A gesture of respect among the mentor. You and your cohort will begin advanced training tomorrow. Velox said, not the standard program, a custom curriculum designed for your unique capabilities. David nodded. Thank you, Servalox. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. I'm not doing you a favor, human. The custom training will be harder, more demanding, more dangerous. He leaned closer and his mandibles spread. In what might have been a smile, if humanity truly is as adaptable as you claim, then I intend to find the limits of that adaptability. I intend to push you until you break or prove that you cannot be broken. David Kim smiled back. We look forward to it. Servalox studied the human for another moment. Then he turned and walked away. His heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. The other alien recruits slowly began to move again. They whispered to each other, casting glances at the human group. Some looked afraid. Some looked curious. Some looked at the humans with new respect. The Thonaki warrior approached David Kim slowly. His bone spurs were fully retracted. You said you would target my right leg, he said. His voice was rough, uncomfortable. How did you know about my injury? David shrugged. Your weight distribution, your stance, the way you shifted when you demonstrated your abilities. Small details, but humans notice small details. The Thonaki was quiet for a moment. Then he extended one of his hands, a gesture of greeting among his species. I'm called James, he said. David clasped the offered hand. David Kim, it is good to meet you. James, the Volcari female, approached next. Her black eyes studied David with less fear than before. You said you would strike my throat, she said, to prevent the acid. David nodded. That is correct. She made a sound that might have been a laugh among her species. Perhaps I should learn to protect my throat better. Will you teach me? David smiled. I will try that. Gorath rumbled something in his deep voice. Michael Lee looked up at the massive creature. Did you just say you want to see how a human fights? Gorath nodded his stone head. Michael grinned. And I hope you are ready to be surprised. Big guy slowly. Hesitantly, the alien recruits began to approach the humans, asking questions, making introductions, beginning the process of building trust. Amy Park watched it happen and allowed herself a small smile. This is how it starts, she said quietly. David stood beside her, his eyes scanning the room as always. This is how it always starts, he agreed. First they fear us, then they respect us, then they fight beside you. She looked at her, and then we win. Amy nodded. The humans of Earth had come to the stars. They had arrived at the greatest military academy in the galaxy. They had been dismissed as weak and soft and useless now. They had shown what they truly were, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Across the hall, Instructor Velox watched from a doorway. His compound eyes tracked the interactions between humans and aliens. His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. He had trained warriors for 60 years. He had never been so excited to train a new species, and he had never been so grateful that these particular predators had chosen to be friends instead of enemies. The instructor blinked, and for the first time in his long career, he felt genuinely glad about the future of the Galaxy because humanity had arrived, and humanity was ready for whatever came next.